The Battle of Midway began in silence and uncertainty, with just the low hum of aircraft engines and the distant crackle of coded messages. In the vast expanse of the Pacific, a lone dauntless dive bomber traced its path beneath the sun, a solitary figure in a conflict that would honestly decide the fate of nations. The story of Midway is often told as a miracle, a flawless American intelligence coup, a perfectly executed ambush that erased Japanese naval air power in 6 minutes. It's a narrative of inevitability, but the reality, the experience of the men who fought it was one of profound, gut-wrenching uncertainty. Victory was not secured by a single brilliant strike, but forged in a crucible of fragmented communications, missed sightings, aborted attacks, and command decisions made with agonizingly incomplete pictures of the battlefield. Most overlook that for the first critical hours of June 4, 1942, the American task forces were not hunters in wait. They were blind, out of position, and their air groups were disintegrating into uncoordinated, desperate packets of aircraft, many of which would never find the enemy. The miracle wasn't foreknowledge. The miracle was that in the chaos, a handful of men made decisions that, against all odds, converged into a strategic victory. The battle was won before a single bomb fell, but that victory was almost thrown away. The breaking of the Japanese Naval Code, JN-25, is well known. It gave Admiral Nimitz at Pearl Harbor the priceless advantages of knowing the target and the approximate date. He positioned his carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, northeast of Midway. But intelligence provides a framework, not a script. The Japanese combined fleet, the Kido Butai, still possessed overwhelming combat power. 4 frontline carriers against 3, with superior aircraft and veteran air crews. Admiral Nagumo, commanding the Japanese strike force, was not a fool. He launched an initial strike on Midway itself, and kept half his aircraft armed with anti-ship weapons in reserve, a prudent, by-the-book decision. The American plan relied on one fragile assumption, that their land-based aircraft from Midway and their carrier air groups could find and hit the Kido Butai before their own carriers were discovered and obliterated. On the morning of June 4th, that assumption began to unravel. The first waves to attack were sacrificial, and their sacrifice was nearly for nothing. As the Japanese strike returned from Midway, the island's garrison hurled everything it had at the enemy fleet. Army B-26 Marauders and B-17 Flying Fortresses, Navy and Marine TBF Avengers, and obsolete Vindicator dive bombers. They attacked in uncoordinated waves, without fighter escort. The results were catastrophic. Of the 52 aircraft sent from Midway, only a handful scored near misses. Not a single bomb or torpedo hit a Japanese ship. Japanese Combat Air Patrol Zeros slaughtered them. For Nagumo, this confirmed 2 things. Midway still posed a threat requiring a second strike, and no American carriers were yet in the area. He made the fateful decision to rearm his reserve aircraft from anti-ship weapons to land attack bombs. This moment, often cited as his critical error, was logical based on the information he had. Meanwhile, the American carriers had launched their own strikes based on incomplete sighting reports. The American carrier air groups became scattered, lost, and began to die alone. Admiral Spruance, commanding Enterprise and Hornet, made a calculated, aggressive decision: launch everything at the last known position of the enemy, even at the extreme limit of his aircraft's range. It was a risk with his entire offensive power. The Hornet's air group followed an erroneous heading, found nothing, and splashed into the sea or turned back. Her torpedo squadron, VT-8, flying obsolete Devastators, did find the fleet. Alone, without fighter cover, they commenced a slow, low-level approach. One by one, they were shot down. Of 30 men, only one, Ensign George Gay, survived. Minutes later, Enterprise's VT-6 met the same fate. The coordinated multi-pronged attack had shattered. The Japanese fleet was untouched, its defensive perimeter intact, its fighters now low on fuel and ammunition, but victorious. From the bridge of the carrier Akagi, the situation, while hectic, seemed under control. The American threat appeared to be nothing but these brave, futile torpedo attacks. The fatal convergence happened not by plan, but by desperate adaptation. The Yorktown's air group arrived separately. Its torpedo squadron, VT-3, also began its doomed attack, further dragging the last of the Japanese combat air patrol down to sea level. At this precise moment high above, two uncoordinated squadrons of dauntless dive bombers from Enterprise and Yorktown arrived independently. They were not part of a masterstroke. They were lost, low on fuel, and their squadron commanders, Lieutenant Commander Clarence Wade McCluskey and Max Leslie, had made a critical battlefield guess. McCluskey, seeing a lone Japanese destroyer speeding north, inferred it was returning to the main fleet. He followed it. What they saw below was not a prepared fleet, but a perfect tactical tableau. 3 Japanese carriers turning into the wind to recover aircraft, their decks packed with fueled and armed planes, their fighter screens drawn down to the deck, chasing the last torpedo bombers. The dive bombers had not arrived because of the torpedo attacks. They arrived at the same time by accident, but it was the sacrifice of the torpedo squadrons that made their dive bombing runs possible. In 5 minutes they turned 3 carriers, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, into infernos. The battle was not decided in those 5 minutes. The battle was decided by the response to them. A 4th Japanese carrier, Hiryu, remained operational. It launched a counterstrike that found and crippled the Yorktown. The American response was immediate. A scout plane from Yorktown herself located the Hiryu, and Enterprise launched a final strike that afternoon, destroying her. The loss of 4 fleet carriers in a single day was a blow from which the Imperial Japanese Navy never recovered. But the lesson here is in operational resilience. The American command structure, though strained, allowed for the rapid dissemination of this new contact report and the launch of a decisive follow-up strike. The Japanese command, however, collapsed with the loss of its flagships and the death of its centralized decision-making. Initiative devolved to individual ship captains without a unifying strategy. The consequences of Midway extended far beyond the sinking of ships. It reversed the strategic initiative in the Pacific permanently to the Allies, but more subtly, it validated a doctrine of decentralized command and the critical importance of survivability in naval aviation. The Zero fighter, once invincible, was shown to be fragile. The American Dauntless, rugged and capable of absorbing damage, became the tool of victory. The battle also underscored a brutal arithmetic. In survival and in warfare, preparedness is not just about having resources, but about the flexibility to adapt when your primary plan disintegrates. The men at Midway fought not with a blueprint for victory, but with doctrine, training, and the capacity to make independent critical decisions under extreme duress. They expected coordination but relied on initiative. We remember Midway not for its inevitability, but for its fragility. It stands as a case study in how quickly the most meticulously laid plans dissolve in the face of friction, mechanical failure, missed signals, human error, and pure chance. The victory belonged not to the side with perfect information, but to the side that could best manage uncertainty, absorb catastrophic losses in the opening moves, and retain just enough command cohesion to exploit a fleeting, unplanned opportunity. And that there is a lesson beyond history. It's about the structure of resilience, the value of adaptable systems over rigid plans, and the sobering truth that in any decisive moment, luck is a factor, but it favors the force that creates the conditions to recognize and seize a single critical chance. If you value these deep dives into the mechanics of history, the decisions that truly shaped our world, then subscribe to War Machiner. Share this video if you believe understanding these complexities is what prepares us, not for war, but for the nature of crisis itself.